Welcome back to the Performance Mindset Show. I'm your host, Amy Calandrino, Orlando commercial real estate broker and the author of the book From Perfect to Real. This show is all about leveling up in business, real estate, leadership, and life by shifting how you think, grow, and lead. Each week, I bring you real conversations with top mindset experts who are building big lives on their own terms. If you're ready to ditch perfection, trust your path, and grow with intention, you're in the right place. Be sure to subscribe and let's get into it. Today, I have with me Allison Weiss, who is the founder of CRE Recruiting. It's a national search firm helping commercial real estate companies by connecting them with top talent across brokerage, development, investment, CRE tech, and more. She's recruited hundreds of professionals throughout her career, previously leading recruiting at Colliers and also Marcus and Millichap. Allison is also the founder of Women Speak CRE, a platform amplifying women's voices in the industry, and she's an active leader and connector in the CRE community, both in person and online. She's a fellow power beacon and a dear friend. Allison is passionate about building careers, building confidence, and building community. Welcome.
Thank you, Amy. I have never been more juiced for a podcast because we have got late and breaking news on the Amy Calandrino front that I just want to dig into. And so I guess one, give us the moment where you thought, I need to consider and weigh some other options. Like tell me that still small voice that you heard or felt and the impetus for you to think about shifting.
Well, I would say I spent some time away this summer. It's been my lifelong dream to spend time in New England during the summer, and I gave myself a few weeks away, and just being there and the calmness and the stillness kind of settles your brain. And when you have less going on in your brain, it's like you can kind of hear things that you don't normally hear. And so I took the time to write out a going into 2026 Amy list. And I started talking about, I want to be super fit. I want to consistently score under 100 in golf. I want to spend more time with my kids. I want to grow my podcast brand. And nowhere on the list was scaling my brokerage again. Like, I've been there, done that, wrote a book about it, and it just doesn't jive with my overall goals. And I advise business owners all the time. And so you fall into two camps. You either have your more like self-employed and just a very few amount of people, but there's a lot involved with that still. And you don't necessarily have the economies of scale, or you have the people that I help out all the time, like the growth mindset kind of entrepreneur. And you're adding locations, you're adding headcount, you're adding revenue, you're innovating your technology, whatever it is. But I was kind of at this point where, I mean, here I am on the Performance Mindset Show, and I am supposed to have this like growth. I did not have a growth mindset when it came to necessarily growing the container in which I operated my brokerage. I also felt I'm at this point where I started doing tenant representation, eventually got into more sales and leasing, and I do great when I have my sign in the ground, and I'm really good at doing that. I'm also getting more into development and investments, and you really will grow when you're around other people who have already been where you want to go. And I started to kind of think about, does this like brokerage really serve me? And so someone I really think really highly of is Sarah Malcolm. And of course, Sarah Malcolm said, gave me her 2 cents on it, and then said, talk to you, Allison Weiss, and then talk to Beth. I accomplished those first conversations within like a day. And then I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy for thinking what I'm thinking. And analytically, this makes sense. I'm not making this decision to walk away from my brokerage just based on like, I'm so sick of it. I'm making this decision because it fits my family's lifestyle.
Mhm.
And it also fits where I want to grow professionally over the next
Mhm.
10, 20, 30 years. And so
Mhm.
that was the voice. I mean, I've been, I feel like, on a whirlwind for,
Yeah.
several years. Um, and it's interesting. I've shared with others that I suffer from OCD, anxiety,
Mhm.
and some different
Mhm.
things. And I remember when I first started kind of quieting my mind a few years
Mhm.
ago, that anytime I actually gave myself space to quiet my mind, I'd be like, this is weird. Like, just to be kind of still. But this summer it didn't feel weird. And I really kind of
Yeah.
like enjoyed that piece for a while. And so I've learned too to kind of throttle between the two modes. And I'm not always like, I still have that, but I also have I'm in the moment. I don't even have a
Mhm.
cell phone on me, and I'm
Mhm.
just listening mode.
Yeah. Well, you said so many beautiful things. I feel
Yeah.
like there's a lot of different rabbit holes that we could go down. One thing about you as a friend, but also watching you, you are such a rare bird. And I, this is a huge compliment, by the way. Rare bird is like huge compliment.
Yeah.
You have just a tenacity and a drive and a fire and a spark. You act with such urgency. You are one of the people who I would put in a camp like me and like a Beth and like a Sarah. So it's funny that you came to all of us to have these
It was like our little
conversations
little square right there. Yeah.
because I feel like you're such an achiever. And as someone who also has their own business and is also kind of in my own unique transition, I have a lot of identity, and I'm sure you had a lot of identity wrapped up in Beyond Commercial.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about the shift in identity and where you're at with that and how you're processing. And yeah, just give me all the feels that you're
Okay.
dealing
So this
with.
is gonna air probably in a few weeks from now, but today is October 22nd. I started my job Monday, October 20th, and I will be honest with everyone. I sat
Mhm.
down at my desk and I was like, what did I do? Like, in the best way possible. And
Because
I
it's
realized
real.
there's
Yeah.
no I'm here. It's
Mhm.
not like I can say like, oopsie, like I'm like, I'm committed.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how I felt for like a moment. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like just excited to kind of get into it and learn all the things. And but there has been a little bit of friction because I mean, I have
Mhm.
my own brokerage. I had
Mhm.
two brokerage companies, one that was part of the Realtor Association, one that wasn't. So I've like two brokerage licenses, two brokerage,
Oh, wow.
one branch license, and it is like this entanglement at like the DBPR. So then, yes, so this is what the power of network is like.
Mhm.
I was having such a hard time yesterday because I'm trying to do my deals. I'm trying to bring them over. I'm
Mhm.
trying to do all these things because I got to get everything kind of over to there, fielding all the calls of the people that heard my news. And so it's a very like intense period. And I talked to like seven different people at this DBPR and they're all telling me different things. And I'm just like, I just want to get my license over. And I'm just like very frustrated.
Yeah.
And then my friend Melanie Griffin, who's actually secretary of the DBPR, but she reached out to me. She's a secretary, and then got me like a direct concierge, and is like, "What person
Amazing.
1, 2, 3 that you talk to? No, that's going to mess up your license, and then you're not going to be able to bring it over." So it's a whole multifaceted thing. They got to like downgrade it, bring it over, then put it into an LLC and inactivate the other. That was really frustrating for me because like here I am, I'm trying to set up inspections and appraisals and like
Yeah.
all these things to keep the deals going, which I think Q4 might be like my best quarter in my entire career, to get
Incredible.
this over.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I need to work out. Like working out is my source of like, all the good hormones that you need
Mhm.
to feel and all
Mhm.
those things. I'm completely off medication. I've been off
Mhm.
all medications. So I show up to the
Wow.
gym. The DBPR calls as soon as I'm getting into the gym. So
Of
I'm
course.
standing there trying to like deal with them. I'm feeling like sick. I have a headache and I just
Oh.
start like crying. But then I like, this is yesterday. And then they're like, no, we got a concierge for you. We're going to handle this. We're going to get it over. But, even me, as strong as I am, I had like a
Mhm.
moment. But
Oh,
then
yeah.
after that, I got my workout in and I realized the day
Yes.
did not end because I gave an hour for myself. But that's like a high achiever is like you can be so focused
It's hard.
and you start to think like, if I focus here, something's going to fall apart here, but it's not. This is just going to be a bit of a clunky process, but in the long term, it's going to be amazing. But that's how I'm dealing. Oh, so I also feel like I am, because as I'm talking to the DBPR, talking about
Mhm.
killing all these licenses, and
Yes.
and it's like basically I'm taking down the house.
You're
So
burning the
it's a bit of
boats. Yeah.
it's, it's a bit of a grieving process.
Yeah. Well, I think we did what the journalists call burying the lead. We did not explain the big change that you have made specifically. So
Okay.
after
Yep.
12 years of founding Beyond Commercial and running that business, tell us about your new role and let's also talk about the process because you ran a very methodical, very smart process. And as someone who advised you, you really were the driver in a way that most people come to me and say, "Oh, I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do. Guide me through this." You were very intuitively understanding how you had to run a process from day one. Tell me one, where are you? What was the process? And what's your perspective now on the other side?
So it's interesting. I came to the realization I'm going to do this in
Mhm.
July, and
Mhm.
I decided I'd like to make the transition by ICSC August at the recommendation of Beth. So I moved
Mhm.
with gusto and great speed,
Yes.
and I'm actually really glad I did. So first advice for
Yes.
anyone making a big transition is give yourself a deadline. The
Yes.
second thing I did
Decide.
was
Yeah.
set up a construct. Ask
Mhm.
yourself why you're doing what you're doing. I actually took my why of what I'm doing and comprised it into a cover letter. I don't know if I ever shared with you my cover letter that I sent to the
No.
several employers, but I actually went through who, what, where, when, why. And that I said, who am I?
Mhm.
What do I do?
Mhm.
What type of culture am I looking for? How is this going to benefit us all? And I went through kind of like, when do I want to do this? And I'm like, I want to do this right away. So I had several phone calls, and then for those I set meetings with, I sent cover letters to, and I tracked it all in a rubric. And so I listed all the brokerage companies I was reaching out to, what phase I was in the particular process. It was almost like my mini like CRM. And, it also gauge, kind of the response of how long it was taking. And, there were certain brokers I didn't hear back from, and I could tell that, it's just not a good fit.
Mhm.
What was surprising to me is because I'm like a very much close the loop person, is that
Yes.
like so many people don't close the loop. You reach out and they
Mhm.
never reach back, and
Mhm.
like, even if you follow up. But so, anyways, I did that, and I started to work towards my initial deadline of ICSC. By ICSC, I think it was down to 4 brokerages, starting with like maybe the 20 phone calls. In a month's time, I had maybe like close to like 10 in-person interviews. And
Mhm.
it involved, for those that know me, I wear Converse sneakers almost all the time. And I did put on the black heels and do exactly what like I was taught to do like in high school when you go on an interview
Yeah.
and put on all that. So anyway, so went through that, but ICSC was wonderful. It was perfect timing because then I was able to meet with more of the companies in person, get to see their booths, how they interacted. Because I do retail and office, it was very important wherever I
Yes.
went, had a great ICS presence. So that worked out well.
Yes.
So then after ICSC, I was down to 3. I was able to eliminate 1 based on, interactions I'd had at ICSC. And again, I just didn't feel like the warmth. And immediately after ICSC, I had a follow up lunch with Wanda Riley from Cushman, which was one of the top like 3. We had a great lunch, but again, I was kind of scared because I'll be honest with you, here I am, this teeny tiny brokerage, and then I'm talking about going to this global brokerage with,
Mhm.
60 countries, 400 offices, 50,000 people. And I kept kind of reverting to another option I had, that would be more comfortable and more familial and all that kind of stuff. But I realized I have to push myself. So the next process was, I just kind of figured out what are all the terms, what are people looking for, how do they want me to stay, all those different things. And I kind of weighed it all out. I had a few more phone calls, follow-ups, and when I really thought about my life and being able to live it in the way that like is most authentic to me and to my family and who I am, I really thrive in having a structured environment. I also felt that if anything ever changed geographically, or I'm summering away, or I'm
Yeah.
visiting another country, it'd be really cool to collaborate. And ultimately, I had so many friends at Cushman that I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. And that was about like a month ago. And then working through all that. But the process is like I had different items in my rubric, like do they have a booth in ICSC? And, am I overlapping with other people in the
Yep.
office? Like,
Very
am I
important.
complimentary? Am I additive? Like, what does that look like? And,
Mhm.
it's just very intentional to make sure wherever I go that it was a good fit. And what was incredible about Cushman, as soon as I decided, I already had teammates before I even came over, like, okay, we totally get what you're going to do. I have this item for you to pitch. And then like,
Amazing.
let's do this together. Let's do this together. And I'm different in my approach than other people, and that I felt great synergy. And I immediately, after I made the decision, had this huge wave of like peace, like wash
Yeah.
over me, which was
Yeah.
incredible and made me feel like, okay, I definitely made the right decision. And there's no ever perfect company. I'm sure there's going to be
Mhm.
ups and downs, just like
Of
in any
course.
kind of relationship. But overall, I feel the most amount of confidence that this will serve me and my clients and give me the best path and trajectory moving forward.
I love it. I know that you have shared this story online, and one of the things that you do tremendously well is talk about your journey, whether it's on LinkedIn, on other platforms, like Instagram or X. Um, I think one of the things that I think about as a business owner, and I wonder if you feel the same way, if you ever decide to pivot or do something new, like you have just decided,
Yes.
were there fears or worries that you had about how people might react, what they might read into it? And talk to me about now on the other side of starting to share this, what the reaction and response has been. So what were the fears and expectations of judgment, and what's really happened?
Well, first of all, I thought that people might think like I was a failure. In fact, I had gotten my brokerage to a really sustainable level that I
Hmm.
could have just kept like kind of trucking along at
Yeah.
that level. Um and I was at a good pace. I had a part-time project manager, two part-time marketing people, and a junior, and I could have kind of kept at that level. Tremendous pipeline. Everything was great. But again, this was kind of more of a lifestyle thing for me. And
Hmm.
so, but yeah, I was very afraid of like people thinking like, oh, well, she must not be successful. She's going there. But let me tell you what, like these brokerages, they aren't going to take someone that isn't like
No.
a producer who's not
No.
successful, because
Yeah.
they especially the big brokerages, you might be able to
Hmm.
go to like a boutique shop and they take a
Hmm.
chance, like I've done for many people over the years, like
Hmm.
I see potential in you, no, like so that was what my fear was. But then I realized that that was like an unhealthy like
Yeah.
fear, and
Wasn't
at
based
the
in
end of,
reality. Yeah.
it's not, it doesn't matter.
Mm-mm.
I would say though, what happened was though, it was interesting is that the OBJ did Orlando Business Journal. I love them very
Hmm.
much, and we gave them the
Yes,
exclusive
that
on
was
it. But
amazing.
their first draft of the article though says shutters firm after 15 years, and I'm like,
Oh
let's not put that
no,
like
no. No.
like I'm about to send this article out to a bunch of people and it sounds like I ran
No.
my business into the ground. And that's like,
Oh,
no.
that's a
Actually, my husband
clickbaity
said,
title.
my husband's like, your fourth quarter is going to be insane. Are you
Yes,
sure you
yes.
don't want to start like January 1st with Cushman? Because you're about to have your
Yes.
best year like ever. And this is
Yep.
just me, just little old
Yes.
me, not
Yes.
more revenue
Yes.
this year for myself than when I had at my max 7 agents under me.
Amazing. Amazing.
But so but you know, the press releases that will be coming out in the following weeks will speak to themselves. But that was
Yes.
what I thought. And then I was just like, I just need to push back because that's ego, that's fear.
Yeah.
You got to do what's right for you.
Mhm.
And okay, so what was the other reaction? It was interesting. I had a friend who's a woman who runs a services firm, similar, different industry, but services firm. Her children are now teenagers, and
Mhm.
she has run a company the entire time, like that they've been growing up, and she's been through the same things, the HR challenges,
Oh
the
boy.
then
Yeah.
trying to scale your brand while still trying to do the work, while trying to go all the child sensitivities. And she's like, Amy, I have to be honest with you. At first, she was like, what in the world did Amy do? But then she read kind of my mindset and why I did it. And I was very transparent. And, for those of you listening, I did a blog post on LinkedIn, kind of taking
Mhm.
people through my whole methodology and why
Mhm.
I did it. And she's just like, it makes a lot of sense. And I wonder to myself, like, it becomes so easy to keep doing what you're doing. Status quo
100%.
is so
100%.
easy to stick with the status quo. It's
Mhm.
very hard to break from that. And she said to me, wow, I wish like I would have considered that or, done that because I definitely see how like that will create more margin in your life. Another message like I got, which just like it literally brought tears to my eyes was that, your heartfelt story rings uncomfortably loud for me. I appreciate you sharing all those hard truths. And it it is true. I mean, I think people glamorize, like people, it's all glamorized how amazing having a business is. And it
Yes.
really can be. I would find the sweet spot would be probably the businesses that I represent that are more like 2 to 10 million.
Yeah.
Scaling on that, I have a lot of clients that are close to like 100 million in revenue.
Mhm.
Let me tell you what, it's a lot different being a CEO of those kinds of
Very
companies
different.
because
Yes.
you have your downline, you have
Mhm.
people under you.
Mhm.
But when you're in this sub 10 people
Mhm.
total headcount, you don't have that leverage and you don't have
Mhm.
the revenue to get the leverage. And
Yes.
it is, you have, I mean, I candidly shared it. You're wearing so many hats. I'm leading the marketing team. Even though I have an HR company, I'm meeting with the HR company and I don't want to not have an HR company, even though I have
Mhm.
a few employees because I don't want
Mhm.
to miss anything. And
Mhm.
so it just requires a lot of mental energy.
Yes.
And so, my advice for people is, you got a couple different choices. You could be basically like a solopreneur with a VA, and you can
Mhm.
just rock it out.
Mhm.
But if you start to kind of go beyond that, usually when you're like 3 to 30 employees, it's a little more challenging. And then when you
Yeah.
break past that, like 30, and you're starting to make a whole bunch of revenue, I think it's a lot easier because you have heads of
Yeah.
departments and those types of things. And so, I know that from working with business owners, and I'm still
Mhm.
so passionate about working with business owners, but just realized it was not for me. But that's also keep in mind that and Cushman Wakefield knows this. I have multiple rental properties.
Mhm.
I have this podcast.
Mhm.
I write a book. I do
Mhm.
speaking engagements.
Yeah.
Um, we have a family foundation. We have
Mhm.
other like things that I do that so I still have companies. I
Yeah.
just chose that I didn't want to have a company. And it was interesting. I had someone on the podcast the other day and they have probably 7 or 8 companies and they said that their brokerage is the least profitable
Yeah.
and the most time consuming. of any of the companies they have. And that
So
that is
interesting.
that is what I hear. People aren't putting it on there, but that's the cold, hard, truth. And, if you get to a certain size, like, Marcus and Millichap, all those kinds of things are, bigger size, that solves a lot of problems. But
Mhm.
these small, independent boutique brokerage shops, it's not super easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love a couple things that you said in there. One, this idea is that when you start with the life that you want, and I'm summarizing and
Yeah.
paraphrasing a bit. You start with the life that you want, and then you reverse kind of engineer what is the environment that you need to create, and the status quo, right? I think when we started our businesses, we were very different people. And we had these ideas and intentions and goals and things when we started these businesses. But over time, because you are in the middle, you're like the hub, and the spokes are all the different things that you're doing: HR, marketing, accounting, all these different things. You get so distracted in the business that
Yes.
you're not necessarily able to work so much on the business.
Right.
Um, and also this idea of status quo, of you had other options to choose from. And one of those felt like, for a number of different reasons, a safer choice because it was maybe more similar. There were some really strong connections and relationships. There was shared values and ethos, super important. There were lots of things that were in alignment. Um, but you knew that to get something different, you were going to have to do something different. And so you went for that, a little bit more of the unknown. You also went into an environment that is perceived to be much more corporate. And just like me, you are not necessarily the corporate kind of person, right? You're multifaceted. You have this amazing personality and story and all of these different things that you're doing. How did you feel like Cushman was able to respond to who you are and to meet you where you are and not change you, in terms of trying to get you to fit into a corporate box? Because I think sometimes these big environments want that.
Well, I think that a lot of corporate brokerages have changed a lot,
Mm.
and that they're
Mm-hmm.
embracing it. And we can thank Ken Ashley of
Mm.
CREI, and we should include a link to the Commercial Real Estate Influencer
Yes,
Summit. But that was one of my next calls was to Ken
of
because
course.
I did not want to go to CBRE. I had a friend there that they were too corporate-y.
Mhm.
I did talk to JLL, but they didn't really have like a place for me. But how did
Mhm.
Cushman like assure me that I would be great? Is like I guess I knew other people in the Orlando office and
Mhm.
knew that they were multifaceted. I just also
Mhm.
felt that the people in Orlando was really warm. But yeah,
Mm.
there are so many things in this global brokerage. I'm like, oh, you do project management for what? And you do this and these
Mhm.
departments and different things that I've never been exposed to. But how did I get well, it's they got it. Like, especially talking to Ken Ashley, he's
Mhm.
super vocal about
Mhm.
his other company that he has, CREI, Summit, and he still does brokerage and he's an
Mhm.
incredible leader. And I saw other people like Mike Warner in Calgary that he
Yeah,
has his brand. And I just saw a lot of other, I also looked to Robert Thornburg. One thing that
big
Robert
fan.
Thornburg
Yeah.
reminded me in
Mhm.
September, maybe I made the decision. One other thing I've left out of it is on my flight home from CREI, and that was in the middle of September. I took a piece of paper in my back of my planner and I just literally wrote it out one more time. Like,
Mhm.
can what is the status quo? Because you said,
Mhm.
look at, is it this or something better? Is what you told me. Is
Yes.
it this or
Yes.
something better? And I looked at what this was
Mhm.
and the pros and cons and then the remaining options I have. But one thing Robert Thornburg like told me is like, Amy,
Mhm.
like your Orlando office is your Orlando office. But then
Mhm.
remember, you got like me and Ken and all these other
Yes.
people that you're going to get to know and introduce yourself and let them
Mhm.
know what you do. and you're going to be able to build this incredible network. And I thought to myself about that, in that I've already kind of done that with CREI, meeting people all over the country.
Sure.
But like those within the Cushman brand are going to feel like more of a loyalty and proclivity to
Affinity.
me.
Yeah.
The other way, so your specific question though too is like, how did I feel like they were going to accept me as a whole person? Is like, I just felt very confident. Wanda Riley, who's the
Yeah.
managing principal at Orlando, she's pretty well known and
Mm-hmm.
been to Globe Street and lots of other things. She told me that she's been with Cushman for almost 25 years. She raised both of her children at Cushman. And she said, Amy, like,
Amazing.
it's even better than it was than when she got
Yeah.
there. And, we have female leadership at the top. And, she assured me that they weren't trying to change me, but
Mm-hmm.
they want to give me like a ramp to continue to grow.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the things I do in the community, and all the other things is because of a direct result. When I'm
Yes.
able to help my clients achieve their dreams, then
Mm-hmm.
thereby, I'm able to be successful to my family, and then being able to also benefit the overall community. That was another thing too, Ken told me, is like,
Mm-hmm.
the more successful you are,
Mm-hmm.
the more successful your community are, because I'm a
Yes.
giver. I've always
Yes.
been that way. I come from
Yes.
like nothing, like nothing.
Yes. Yes.
And, so everything that I have, I feel incredibly grateful to have. And so I've just always been just very generous. Even when I've had ups and downs, in my life, I just always try to find a way to give back. So I just really felt with the people. Like I felt
Mm-hmm.
this strong bond. And I know there are people that have merged in and out of brands, and they have
Oh,
their own
sure.
personal things, and
Yeah.
that makes sense. But for my asset class, for my type of book
Mm-hmm.
of business, it just made a lot of sense.
Awesome. So on the other side, technically, but for a short period of time, right? Looking a bit in the rearview mirror, is there anything now that you're like, oh, I wish I would have thought about this, or advice that you might have if there are other women, whether they're pivoting in, their own businesses back into corporate, or just in the middle of a transition, anything that you feel like you have learned in this process that would be beneficial to share?
Ooh, I would say the biggest thing is to be patient and make
Mhm.
sure that you just get everything where you want it to be, and so you feel comfortable that you didn't miss anything. And so like I said, as I gave myself grace, I kept giving
Yeah.
myself deadlines. Like I really
Mhm.
wanted to transition by ICIC, that didn't really happen, and then I tried to push again to do by CREI, and of course I
Mhm.
decided right after CREI, but then I wanted to start on October 3rd,
Mhm.
but everything wasn't ready. And so you just it was a little hard during the limbo
Mhm.
land before I had executed agreements and then moved
Yes.
over. And part of me is just like, I want to get this done. I want to get this done. But my advice for anyone is, when you look back,
Mhm.
the days and weeks of delays are going to be just microscopic on the
Compressed. Yeah.
overall grand scheme of things. And so I think something that I learned a lot was patience. One
Mhm.
other thing I highly encourage is, if you get
Mhm.
down to a couple different people, and
Mhm.
especially when you're down to those two forerunners, you will have had tons and tons of conversations and emails.
Mhm.
I met with the number two that I didn't go with, and personally delivered the news. It's like, hey, I know we were planning to meet today for us to further work out this deal, but I've come to the decision over the week, and I didn't make it about them. I
Mhm.
just told them that I've decided that a global brokerage makes most sense for me and my family moving forward.
Mhm.
Didn't disparage what they had at all,
No.
and honored that relationship. So, um, if someone has invested that much time and that much
Mhm.
energy in you, and I think delivering the news personally,
Yeah.
and I was very detailed with any of the other top like five to get
Mhm.
back to them. So that'd be like an advice for someone, is like, people are always going to remember how you made them feel,
Yes.
and the kinder you can be, and
Mhm.
the better you can
Mhm.
honor that relationship. I think it's so important because you never know where life's going to lead you.
Absolutely. If I can just reflect on some of the things that I saw in you that were especially unique, because I've helped, as you mentioned in your intro, hundreds of people
Yeah.
transition, whether they're brokers or other folks in commercial real estate at all. One of the things that I felt like you did in a very intentional way that others haven't done as well or as often is to be really transparent. I think there's a bit of gamesmanship that goes into when people are navigating these types of moves. And there's this idea that by speaking first or by giving too much information, that you might actually, kind of lessen your ability to negotiate or lessen your standing. But because you are able to say, these are my values, this is what's important to me, this is what I've done, this is what I'm looking for, you were so clear in that thought process, right? You weren't kicking the tires.
Hmm.
You were going in a very intentional way, and you knew your list. You knew exactly what you wanted. I think a lot of people, one, don't spend the time from an introspective standpoint to understand, and to digest what has happened before, to then not recreate the same experience that they just had, but to actually take those learnings in and use them as a filter or a frame for making a decision for the future. And you did that really well. And I think I might guess it's because you are naturally a person who is very transparent and authentic. But is where does that come from? Have you always kind of had that approach?
Um, so I'm always the same way, just even when tenant
Hmm.
representation, and
Hmm.
even when I managed my husband's law firm for a while, and I was the firm administrator.
Hmm.
And even if we got 300 applicants, I got back to every single one of them. So that I don't
Wow.
like to leave anybody in limbo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it would be like I would give the login to the receptionist or just respond
Yeah.
auto like to all the emails. But I like to close the loop, I guess
Hmm.
is what it is. And like I
Hmm.
don't like to leave people hanging. And so when I'm handling tenant representation, let's just say we start with like 10 sites and then we only decide to tour five, then I'm emailing the other five and saying, hey, we've decided not to select this for a tour. Then we're
Yeah.
down to the five and we go see the five and we definitely have it down to just two. Then I'm emailing the other three to say, thank you so
Hmm.
much. We've decided this because of this. Then we're down to the two. And, I'm not going to tell number two until we're sure on number one.
Of
Kind of like
course.
the
Of
same thing with
course.
me.
Yeah.
But I think you cannot over communicate.
Yes. Yes.
And I feel like I've built some really strong brokerage relationships because people always know where they stand with me.
Yes. Yes.
And I think whether you're personally doing hiring
Hmm.
or other things like that, I think there's an epidemic of just getting something and then
Hmm.
not responding and ghosting people
Yes.
and just leaving people in limbo. And
Yes.
I don't care for it all. It's just not,
Yes.
but that's how I'm naturally because
Yeah.
I know how it feels to be
Yeah.
like when you're just stuck and you don't know where you are in the
Yeah.
process and the overall thing. So I think I'm just very empathetic. The other that's I think why I'm also very successful at what I do. I
Hmm.
talk to my clients.
Hmm.
Where is their business now?
Hmm.
Where are they looking to go? Or where is their
Hmm.
portfolio now? Where are they going to go? And I'd like literally it's like I'm like out of my body, like
Hmm.
kind of putting myself in their mind frame and then being able to kind of visualize and then analytically pull everything in to craft them a solution. I think I'm just like that. I'm able to kind of separate myself from myself
Yeah.
and think of like
It's
what somebody else would want.
It's super rare. And in this instance, where you're advocating and running this process, you're treating yourself like your own client. And where I see a lot of people make mistakes is the emotions, right? When you're negotiating for yourself or when
Oh yeah.
you are, putting yourself out there to say, hey, I want to make this change and here are all the reasons why, there's some vulnerability there. And I guess how do you manage And in your storytelling, I noticed this too. And I think maybe where I hesitate, I see you go forward and I think, oh, I aspire to that level of vulnerability because I think that that feeling of exposure or whatever it is, how do you get past maybe those fears or those anxieties and share so openly your story, where you're coming from, and all of that?
Wow. I guess I'll have to point to another power beacon, Delee Becker, and she was on my
Yes.
podcast, very early on, and she always told me is if you project yourself to be a different person than you are, and then someone meets you, how surprised they're going to be. And conversely, if you put yourself out a certain way and someone's like, oh my God, I love her, like I want to work with her, that's great. Other people
Yes.
might see me and like, whoa, Amy's a little like intense. And by the way, I don't ever share anything related to my clients or anything without like their permission, even when I'm like
Yeah.
celebrating, of course, that kind of things. But
Yeah. You're not
I
oversharing.
I would say I always just I don't want my online presence and who I am to not be congruent. And
Hmm.
so if someone doesn't care for who I'm projecting, then great. I've saved myself a lot of time with them not calling
Yes.
me and
A
reaching out
hundred
to me because I'm not
percent.
their vibe.
Yeah.
Naturally, one third of people are going to like you.
Hmm.
One third of people are just not going to care for you at all. And then
Yeah.
a third of the people are going to be agnostic. And so, how
Yeah.
confusing is that if you're putting out one version of yourself and then, yeah.
100%.
And
Yeah.
so, like, everybody who was meeting with me knew what they were getting into. And so, I think also that was interesting for me because I had such an authentic personal brand
Mhm.
that certain, I did hear from a couple brokerages, is like, yeah, we're not really like into that, as much. And so
Good to
that
know.
I was not the right fit. So, because I
Hmm.
put myself, so how did I do that? I guess the more you do it, it's like a sport, the more comfortable
Hmm.
you are. Of course,
Hmm.
there's a really good book that I'm reading right now called Rich Relationships.
Hmm.
I think it's Serena Sue,
I'm gonna
and
write
she
it
talks
down.
about the level of your friendships, like, right? So
Hmm.
you have your inner like level one circle, your next circle, your twos and your threes. Obviously there's information that my ones and twos may have, like
Certainly.
super
Hmm.
like private things, but
Hmm.
generally, it's out there, and that also helps me too, like with my relationships, like, my power beacons are right in those
Hmm.
inner like three circles, and if someone wants to get together, then get together. But yeah, just practice and just being out there, and then just being true to who I am.
Awesome. Um, I'm trying to think, and we can edit this part out. Are there other things related to your transition that we haven't gotten to that you'd like me to ask questions about? Anything?
Mm.
I mean, maybe even to
What was
like,
I? No, let's just say part of my timing is I did
hmm.
think about initially, like my husband's like, "Oh wow, you're gonna have like this insane fourth quarter. Why not
Hmm.
like just keep it all for yourself?" At
Hmm.
the end of the day, that's not
Hmm.
really going to serve them and me. It's going to leave us in this like awkward limbo. And at the end of the day, we will make it work, between you and the other organization, to make it mutually beneficial. But I felt the timing of if someone's looking to kind of do this, I do think it works really well to start, like make that transition in the fourth quarter when you have holidays and you have other stuff and you can kind of do that. And sometimes commercial real estate can be slower.
Hmm.
And so then I could hit the ground running in
Yeah.
January is really what I visualized for myself. And I'll be through all that like awkward, weird DBPR and all these weird things. I'll be through all that
Yes.
and on the other side. And
No, no,
use, and then all the touches that I'm having at all the holiday parties and all the
perfect.
different things, I'm in my new role.
Yeah. That's such a great point. And I think there's there's this inevitable cycle that commercial real estate hiring patterns go in, and it's usually like new year, new me, right? People have been home for the holidays. They've been talking to their families. Maybe they're unhappy, they're reflecting, and they're like, well, if I'm a broker and I'm on a graduated commission split, my commission split just reset to the lowest amount. And a lot of my deals closed at the end of the year. Like maybe I should think about moving on. And so sometimes people will do it that
Yeah,
first.
that makes
It's
sense. I
pretty
think there's
common
probably
then.
two big times. Yeah.
I think so, but I love what you're saying. And this is how I feel about kind of 2026 planning, which for me starts in like October of the prior year, because I want to know what I'm going to do and start working and making progress on those
Yes.
goals that I have for 2026. It's arbitrary to me to rely on that January 1st date. And if I'm starting, the foot race on January 1st with all these things I want to do, why would I? If I know exactly, this identity, this new version of myself that I want to embody, I need to start embodying that right away
Yep.
and working on that right away. So I love that you're doing that, and so smart with the holidays coming up, because you've got touch point after touch point. You've got
After
events.
touch
You've got,
point after touch point. It's
yeah,
ridiculous. Yeah.
holiday gift season, all
Yeah.
of the things. Um, Amy, I just am so glad that you were willing to share more kind of behind the scenes about the transition. I think so many people see these press releases or LinkedIn position updates, and they never get to hear the real story as to the decision making that went into it. You were so methodical. I think so many people can learn from this. When you're thinking about the future, you're thinking about 2026, and kind of your approach to business and deals. Tell me a little bit, when you're pitching yourself now within the Cushman and Wakefield platform and also externally to new clients, when should people reach out to you, or what really is kind of your strengths and your expertise in the business?
Sure. I work with small, medium-sized businesses to help them build generational wealth, and we do that by increasing their bottom line by making smart real estate decisions. And so, whether it's strategically negotiating the best favorable lease terms possible to kind of maximize that cash flow, or they're already cash flowing really well and they're ready to buy their own assets and build their own portfolio, that's where I really come in. And at my own brokerage, I was across all the different asset classes, but now I'll be focused primarily on office and retail mixed use kind of development. And so whether someone's trying to build more wealth through increasing their NOI on their properties or otherwise, I serve Central Florida with a focus on small neighborhoods and districts within Orlando. And so I'm very much on the streets, with the small business owners, those kinds of things. So when do they reach out to me? I guess if anyone hears of anything going on in Orlando, reach out to me. I always say to people, considering me your commercial real estate 411. If
Mhm.
I'm not the right fit, you have my commitment and my promise that I'm not going to take on a deal that I'm not going to add value or be the best fit possible. I will go through my Rolodex and figure out who is the best person. And if you don't know what a Rolodex is, it does not exist physically so much anymore. But I'll know. Some people might not know, as I was president actually of the CCIM Central District. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, previously, and so I know so many people. That was one other thing I told everybody that I interviewed with is like,
Mhm.
I used to know every managing principal of all the firms when I was president of
Mhm.
CCIM Central
Mhm.
District, like 5 years ago, and
Mhm.
and be able to develop those relationships. And I said, even though it's not working out here, what's
Mhm.
wonderful is I now know who you are. Who are the best candidates to send you. What are you guys doing? It was
Yes.
beautiful. So when do they reach out to me? Because I know all those people. Because I know all those
Mhm.
things. Just, if you think of Orlando, think of me, and happy to connect you to the right resource, or I might be it. And if that's the case, then I'm always going to give my best and give my honest assessment for people and help them build a solid strategy to move forward with their goals.
Awesome. And if and this is for my podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
If our listeners want to learn more about you, connect with you, find out about your book, what's the best place to get all of that information?
Sure. LinkedIn is a great place to start. I do monitor my LinkedIn DMs and respond there. That's always a great way. Or you're welcome to reach out to me by email. My new email is amy.calandrino, CALANDRANO @cushwake.com. So those are usually the best channels to kind of reach out to me at.
Awesome.
And then what's the best way for my listeners to reach out to you?
Sure. So best way, also LinkedIn. If you search Allison S. Weiss, there's lots of Allison Weisses. I'm the one with the S, founder of CRE Recruiting and Women Speak CRE. Easy email for me is just my first name, ALLISON, like the old-fashioned way, at CRErecruiting.com. And if you're interested in the Women Speak CRE platform, you can sign up as a speaker. You can sign up as a media user to go through and find speakers for your next event or your podcast. That is womenspeakcre.com. And everyone can feel free to reach out, DM, email. Happy to chat with women who are interested in the platform, men who are interested in advocating and supporting, and anyone who has a volunteer role or a leadership role within a membership organization in commercial real estate, so we can get you access to over 300, hopefully 500 by the end of the year, incredible women speakers with commercial real estate backgrounds for your events, your conferences, and all uses in between, including media.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm happy to be part of the platform, and I'm so glad that what you're doing to advocate. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Well, I want to thank everybody for listening to the Performance Mindset Show. If today's episode gave you something to think about, share it and subscribe so you don't miss out on what's next. Want to go deeper? Grab my book, From Perfect to Real. It's all about dropping perfection and thriving your way. You can also connect with me at amycalandrino.com. Until next time, stay grounded, stay growing, and keep showing up for you.
Thanks, Amy.